Today, we're going to talk about why most people wait too long to make moves that they've already decided that they want to make. And the decision filter that I use that helped me walk away from six-figure jobs twice, move countries 3 times, live in a kung fu school, and build my vision living in Bali for the last 6 years. What I've seen is that at some point, most people are going to come up against a moment in their life or something in their life that they want to change. But they struggle in making that change, even if they know that that change is going to make their life better in some way. So it could be with a job, it could be with a relationship, it could be with money, it could be with a habit, with health, or any of these kinds of things, right? But what generally tends to end up happening is that you want to make a decision or you want to make a change, but you're not 100% sure about what the outcome of that decision is going to be. And because there's a question mark or an unknown or a journey in getting there that's maybe not completely clearly laid out and relies on you to do something differently, overthinking comes in and second guessing yourself comes in and other people's opinions start to come in and starting to do the thing and then slipping back to old habits comes in. So why is it that we do this? What is it about change that makes it so difficult for us to actually follow through with, even when we know that our lives are going to get better when we do it? Because the result of doing absolutely nothing, or even starting to do things but not following through on the things and kind of doing it half-assed, or being stuck in indecision, or the rest of that stuff, if that's how we choose to live our lives, ultimately what ends up happening is that we get to the end of it and we're miserable, or we have midlife crisis, or we get depressed or anxious. And at some point you're going to look back at your life in the future and you're going to have regrets about not having made the move and not having done the thing, right? And so ideally we're not all getting to the end of our lives with massive regrets. And I used to also be like this, and so I spent a long time partying hard, and I would tell myself every Monday morning would roll around and I'd be like, I can't keep doing this, it's not good for me. And then Thursday, Friday would roll back around and I'd be dig back on the phone, out with the same people, doing the same thing. And that was my life, and it was my life for a long time. So I was also stuck in this spiral of not being able to make a change, even though I knew that my life would be better when I made the change. And I even did it with relationships. So for the first, all of my 20s, basically, every relationship that I was in was not healthy. And that was also because I was not healthy emotionally. And neither were the people that I was choosing. I was choosing people from a place of zero self-worth. I was overgiving and people-pleasing from that place of zero self-worth, because like me giving would make me enough in some way. And then I'd get resentful that that wasn't reciprocated and the relationship wasn't balanced. And they're like, well, you know, this is how I've always been. It would just become this loop of an unhealthy relationship. And there was multiple times that I knew that this was not healthy, but I still continued to choose to be in it. And breaking up would be this like laboriously overly emotional process, because I was so like guilty about the potential of hurting somebody's feelings. And so I would stay in situations which they would have been fine, you know, if that relationship had have ended earlier than it did. So that was another way that it played out. It played out in my career. So I ended up not being one of those people who is super sure of what they're going to go and study at uni and get a job in and all of those things. I was like constantly questing for meaning and constantly questing for purpose and more, and what's the meaning and why are we here and blah, blah, blah. And so I had this feeling that I wanted to do something different, but obviously that something different wasn't presenting itself to me. And where I grew up was a pretty normal town in the UK. There was a limited number of opportunities. I ended up getting a job working for an IT company, and I was telling myself that I was just doing this job until I figured out what I really wanted to do with my life. 10 years later, I'm still there, having worked my way up and having quite a great career at this point, but still with that sense of like, I've got to do something different, but I don't know what it is. I personally relate on a very visceral level to this process of struggling to make big changes in your life, and the feelings that we have to encounter when we stay in the same place, in a place that we know is not for us, for too long. Today, my life looks very different. I ended up going to stay with monks in Thailand. I came back, made a decision that I was going to quit my career, but I was going to give myself 2 years to do it, because I wanted to be financially prepared and I wanted to pay off all my debt. And then I was going to go overseas and figure it out on the way. And so I got moved to Prague. My financial goals all became suddenly possible. I ended up leaving that job and going to live in a kung fu school for a year. When I left there, I went to Bali, and that's where I am now. And I've been here for the last 6.5 years, building remote businesses, and I've been helping other people build their impact brands, living their soul purpose from behind the scenes. But making a change is not just about willpower, right? And this is where I think a lot of our society gets it wrong. There's so many motivational videos on YouTube. There's so much advice on social media that's just like, make the decision, do the thing, hold yourself accountable. You've got a goal, do whatever it takes, get yourself out of bed at 3 a.m. and go on the run. Is it the most beneficial way of making people make changes, just to try and force your way through it in your brain? No. If it was, then more people would make the changes. And trust me, I've got a lot of lived experience when it comes to trying to make changes and then going backwards and going forwards, taking 2 steps here and 2 steps there and following this advice and then following that advice. So it took me years and years to finally come to a state of clarity about what works and how you can make decisions that change your life in the easiest and most effective way. For me, a lot of that clarity came when I had a complete "this is not it" moment. And that moment came when I was in a leadership development training with my corporate job, and they were trying to spark personal growth in everybody that was there. And they were asking us to look back at our lives 60 years from now and answer the question, would you have any regrets? And so there was me envisioning this corporate career and, buying some houses and looking back at my time of always worked for somebody else, got a good pension, been on holiday twice a year, but I've been beholden to somebody else's timetable. I have given my life and all my time away to this company who cares nothing about the people, cares nothing about the planet, only cares about the share price. And I just had this horrifying alarm bell that went off in my head of, I can't do this. This can't be my life. And so when that moment was really powerful, catapulting myself into the future and realizing that was the trajectory that I was on. And so that triggered a huge personal development journey. That and a relationship breakdown where I finally realized that I was part of the problem. Those two things together sent me off to Thailand. And then when I came back, all of these next steps and big things and other decisions were happening. None of that was easy because there was nobody to show me the way. I was trying to figure things out mostly on my own. I was dealing with a lot of doubt. I was dealing with a lot of confusion. I was dealing with a lot of, if I leave my job, am I leaving everything behind that I've worked for my whole life so far, this 10 years that I've spent? Is that wasted? Am I ever going to get where I want to be if I leave it all behind now and I just take a chance on myself? So I had a lot of doubt. I had a lot of people in my life, other people who were conditioned by the rules of our current society, telling me why this was a terrible idea for me to, make these kinds of decisions and that I was going to regret it. And that whole process now has been 10 years of my life. And all the moving overseas, the going to a kung fu school, the living in Bali, setting up my first business, setting up my second business, working with other people in their 7-figure impact brands, stepping away from that now to even do my own thing. And so all of these things have been navigated by me along the way. And as I've gone through this process many, many times, I have honed it down because I've really learned what works, what doesn't work, what's noise, what's bullshit in the self-development guru online space community, and how you actually get where you want to be in the most straight line as possible. Life is life, right? It's still gonna life. a little bit. You can't ever have the whole path figured out, but at least with some principles that are solid guideposts to get you from A to B, the places that you want to be. Having these kind of tools for yourself means that you can drown out the noise of your family, of your friends, of what society's taught you to believe is the acceptable path and the way forward for you. It enables you to stop relying completely on social media carousels and reels from randos who may or may not have the kind of help that you need. And it starts to enable you to become a sovereign being, become liberated from everybody else's bullshit and your own conditioned bullshit that's going on in your own mind. Become free, become liberated, and start to make decisions from a place that feels good within you. Because the number one mistake that I see when people try to change is that they just overcomplicate the shit out of it. Like, let's take, for example, somebody who wants to lose weight. This person will make a decision that they want to lose weight, and then they will start down one path of doing that. Let's say it's changing their food, and it's changing it in this particular way. But now that they're in the algorithm for it, they see 700 million other people's versions of the way to do it. So one minute they want to be keto, the next minute they've heard that actually doing it this way is better, or that this way is better, or they overcomplicate the exercise part of it and they start training for 4 hours a day until they're absolutely exhausted and then they don't want to train anymore, or they're so hungry that they feel really guilty about eating the cake again, and they make this whole thing a super stressful process. It's the same thing when somebody wants to split up with somebody, right? Like, instead of just going, oh, this relationship is a problem and I've gotten to the point where, you know, we've tried all the things that a healthy couple would do, but I just know that it's time for us to go on our separate paths. But in that, there'll be so much like, but what about them? Are they going to be okay? Should I really do this? Am I going to regret it? I don't want to see them with somebody else. Like, all that noise is part of being human, but it's also a big complication that doesn't actually need to be there, right? And so we can do this in a job situation. I want to leave my job, but is the new one going to be better? Am I going to like the people that I work with? Is the commute going to be better or worse for me? Am I going to make any more money? Is the more money worth it? Is the pay reduction worth it? Am I going to hate my boss again? Like, we do all of these things, even though we know we're not satisfied where we are. We then create this volcano of like mental chatter about the thing that we want to change, and then we don't do anything because it's so overwhelming that we just go, oh my god, that's like a noisy TV. All I want to do is turn it off and watch Netflix or distract myself down a doom scroll hole. And I avoid it, and I keep myself stuck in the same situation. That doesn't have to be your reality. You don't have to do that. You don't have to do that big, exhausting dance every time you want to do anything differently in your life, whether that's a job, whether it's a relationship, whether it's changing habits, whether it's food, whether it's money, whether it's whatever it is. You don't have to make it so much harder than it needs to be. There is a simpler way, and if you also had this repeatable, simple decision-making filter, you would be able to cut out all of that noise, and you would feel peaceful, you would feel calm, you would feel forward momentum in your life, you would feel like you're making progress, you would feel like you're going somewhere, you would feel like you're living for yourself, like you've got sovereignty, and like you're a free and liberated human being on this planet. We have to take responsibility for our own lives. We can't, blame everybody else for our problems, blame our jobs for our problems, blame all of this for our problems. Our responsibility is us and our life. And if you want a life that's different or better than the one that you currently have, it's on you. There's nobody else and that's not a shame thing. That's not like it's your fault that your life is currently the way that it is, so feel bad about it because you're not doing enough. It's not that, and that is normal motivational advice that's out there today. It's not that. It's just saying, okay, I am where I am. And I am where I am because for some reason I've needed to be here. And life has this way of putting us in situations for us to discover the things that we don't like so that we can discover the things that we do like in order for us to make changes, in order for us to grow as human beings, because growth is an organic and natural part of all life. And it's just about saying, okay, hey, I accept where I am. As in, I accept it, I see it, but I want more. And I'm gonna get into the water and swim like a fish towards the goal that I want, instead of like flapping your way there, making a crashing bunch of, you know, turbulent water when it could just be this like smooth glide. And that's your choice. And if you want that, if you want to be able to have that method in your own life, then you can get it by getting the How to Make Decisions That Change Your Life workshop that I've linked underneath this video. If you're not ready to do that for whatever reason, then you can also just hit like and subscribe, and you can find me in another video. But if that's something that you are actively working towards and that you really want to create, it's there for you, and it's £27. So go grab it.